I'm Craig Kenneth, a relationship coach and a psychotherapist. Every relationship is different and every breakup is different. Work with me and you'll get professional help on your situation. And if you're in no contact, focused on personal growth, my workbook series, The Knowledge, will help you make changes like you've never made before. Available now at AskCraig.net. Hi there, I'm Coach Craig Kenneth.
And I'm Coach Victoria.
And today we're going to be talking about I wanted to tell them what I learned.
It's a noble effort.
This comes up every so often where somebody is just convinced that they should reach out and tell their ex everything that they've learned. I've changed. I learned so much right now.
And I understand that because you probably are.
Yeah.
You're probably mind blown with all the information that's out there and that you're learning about relationships and attachment.
Yeah.
I remember the first time I heard about this, I was like, wow, there's a whole world out there.
Yeah, it really is enlightening. But I remember one guy wanted to do a TikTok account.
I remember this.
and do all these TikTok videos about what he's learned. Unfortunately, that's just not the way it goes. It just isn't what creates attraction after a breakup. Okay, telling somebody what you've learned, I've seen it happen. I've seen many people try it over the years, and usually somebody will say something like, "Oh, that's great, I'm happy for you," or something like that.
Yeah.
But it doesn't make them feel this visceral connection or attraction to you again.
And I noticed that a couple things happen, especially if you are trying to enlighten them on their attachment style. Like if you have discovered that your ex is avoidant and you want to tell them and you want to change their world and you want to give this a second go.
Yep.
A lot of times exes will get very defensive. They will be very resistant to any type of positive feedback, constructive feedback that you will try to give them because it sounds like you are trying to change them.
They're going to get angry.
Yep. And the other response is generally some type of resentment, some type of why now? Why is all of this, coming up right now? How come you didn't realize this 5 months ago or a year ago? And you've allowed me to suffer this whole time.
Yep, you're right. I've been telling you we've had these problems for the last 6 months and you haven't listened to me. Now you're going to change? Now after I call off the engagement and threw you out of the house with your 4 kids? Now?
Yeah, and it can seem manipulative. It can seem I'm doing all of these changes just to get you back.
Yes.
To then revert back to my old ways and treat you the same that I've been treating you or fall back into these old patterns.
And many people do that. Many people are using it to manipulate, and many people do fall back into their old patterns. That's why we tell you guys, put yourself on probation for at least 9 months after you get back together. Otherwise, you're going to wind up in another breakup. You don't have to believe us, but you're going to find out the hard way. Unfortunately, we're trying to tell you based on what we see all the time.
And you might understand a lot of the information that we share here if you're learning from other sources too about attachment, about relationships, but it's going to take some time for that information to really absorb into your mind, into your body. It's kind of like with math. Sure, in the beginning you might understand the quadratic formula or whatever it is, but it still doesn't come quickly to you. You still are not getting it. It takes some time for your brain to automatically, apply certain concepts, and then you can just see a problem and know exactly what to do.
Exactly. Yes, it takes time, and it's not easy to do to break those patterns. So we got an email coaching today that we're going to get into from a guy that is in his mid-50s, an anxious guy. He describes himself as anxious male. That's what we should have titled this video, Anxious Male.
That sounds like when you mail your ex a handwritten letter. It's called Anxious Mail.
Anxious Male. That's funny. And then this woman is around the same age, and he said avoidant female.
Oh.
Now he says 84 days since the breakup. It sounds like it's going to start off like a long story, right? It's been 84 days since we've been stranded here on this island. Right? But no, 84 days since the breakup and 55 days of no contact. He's still counting the days.
Yeah, and I understand that. Anxiety is high after a breakup, especially if you're already predisposed to be anxious in relationships. I can see why he's counting.
Mm-hmm. So let's get into this one. He says, I'm really struggling now and want to contact her with a letter explaining a few things.
Sorry, I'm just thinking about anxious male. Okay, continue.
You're laughing at your own jokes.
I am, it was funny.
I'm really struggling now. Want to contact her with a letter explaining a few things and how I now understand her attachment style and how I can adapt. I've seen this a lot over the years. He says, the relationship was great. No fights, no arguments, excellent chemistry, and good sex. She said the best in her life. We always had regular contact and visits despite living opposite sides of the city and slightly different work hours. She is emotionally immature, I believe. That's what he says. She's probably thinking the same thing, right? But was committed to the relationship. Told me she loved me daily, trusted me, and sent some of the most wonderful, heartfelt messages I've ever received. Only 14 days prior to the breakup. Wow. I mean, it's interesting to hear of an avoidant telling you they love you daily. Right?
Yeah, and I just imagine how confusing. You're getting all of these messages and indications that she's very committed to the relationship, invested, cares about him a lot, just 2 weeks before a breakup.
Yep.
Wow.
She is 5 years out of a 30-year marriage to a very abusive and hurtful partner she met when she was just a teenager.
Wow.
Oof, that's brutal.
Yeah.
30 years with a very abusive partner.
It's a lifetime in relationship with this person.
Yeah. Now, she is 5 years out, so that's a good amount of time to be out of it. But still, you can imagine it's going to take time to get over that. She is very traumatized. I knew that and tread very carefully. I don't know her past relationship details, but know they lasted only 5 months at most. Okay, meaning all the other guys since the husband. And she walked away from all of them. Now we're hearing the avoidance stuff. And from what I remember, petty reasons. All right, so now we got 3 things here that are lining up with avoidant. 5-month relationships. She walked away from all of them for petty reasons. That all sounds very avoidant.
And it's also important to put into the context of a 30-year relationship with somebody who was abusive. It sounds like he was emotionally abusive and mentally abusive. So that does a lot to someone's perception of relationships. She is probably coming out of that, reached some point where it became overwhelming. And at that point is, when it made a huge impact on her, and now she's being distrusting of every other relationship since then, is my guess.
Sure.
I can't imagine 30 years, especially during all of those years of your 20 when you're developing who you are, figuring out what you want in life, being connected with a person who he sounded controlling. So I wonder if she's ever fully developed her own identity as an adult.
Yeah. The only thing that I really appreciated was that it was 5 years out. And that's a good amount of time. Ours was a 6-month relationship and was the best relationship I've ever had in my life. I put my heart and soul into it to ensure everything was perfect for us both. Okay, well, you were just starting to get to know her. And while, it's nice that you were invested, you really want to take a solid year to get to know somebody. And when you're pouring your heart and soul into somebody that you don't know this well or that well, you're going to wind up getting hurt a lot of the times. Always be careful. You want to see how they are for a solid year. All right, let's go on. She had some demanding family matters, which I believe were affecting her at the time. And as the cornerstone of her entire family, I understood her need to have space to address those when needed. I was very supportive in that regard and not needy. Her daughters, too, were traumatized by their father and seemed very protective of their mother. They showed me little consideration during my time with them, and I felt disliked.
That's a very common experience for somebody who is dating somebody who has children. It's very common for it to be a struggle to win the approval and attention of the kids. A lot of times you're the new guy on the block. They are wondering what it's going to be like to have you as a co-parent sometimes if the kids are younger, or they can be very protective of their parent if you're coming in and being around their parent a lot more often, the person who at some point eventually is going to take care of their parent.
Yep. We have no idea how old these kids are either, because she was in a 30-year marriage, so they could be 25, they could be 10, who knows. I was caring, loving, and supportive. She told me so many times she had never been loved like this and never thought she would ever find love like I showed her. Now, I think that's important because it might be uncomfortable for her to be cared about in this way. But she found it with me, and I was, quote unquote, perfect. I always put her first. That could be overwhelming for an avoidant to feel so much pressure. Like, he cares about me so much, it's like too much. I can't take this.
Well, and also considering this 30-year marriage. I'm sure her experiences with these other men have been vastly different from what she's been used to.
Sounds like it.
So, I can see it from her perspective too.
Got a little bit more here. After a family barbecue, his family, he puts in parentheses, where I was having fun with my family and kids, and yes, I had a few beers, she said in her dumping text the next day, I was behaving badly and that we were, quote unquote, not well suited.
That's interesting.
Well, the first thing that comes into my mind are, two things. One, was she getting triggered by the drinking? Was the ex maybe an alcoholic, drinking a lot, or got abusive when he was drinking?
It's a possibility.
And the other thing is that maybe she got triggered and overwhelmed by being around his family too much too soon. It's still under 6 months or so at this point.
Yeah. I'm confused here. Now, was he with her at this family barbecue?
It was his family barbecue, and she was there with everybody, his family.
Oh, I see. And then the next day she texted him.
And said he was behaving badly.
I wonder if there's more to the story there, because from her perspective, there's probably moments where maybe he was being a little bit crass, maybe he was being unresponsible. It's hard to say without the details here what she might be thinking.
Well, he did mention that it was the third family gathering she had been to, and he said he acted similar at other ones, but not as bad. So maybe he was feeling a little bit more, I don't know, free to just say and do whatever he wanted because he's around his family, and maybe that was just too overwhelming.
Yeah. And an introduction to a family and a relationship is a huge step. When we're thinking about family systems, a family's influence on someone, on their personality, you really get to know somebody really quickly when you get to see what they were raised with.
Absolutely.
So I wonder how different his family is to maybe what she's used to, other things that she's been exposed to. Maybe there were things that he felt very open talking about with his family that were very uncommon for her to share with family members.
Sure.
So I really would have loved to hear her perspective on this and see exactly, specifically, what happened.
Well, we got a little bit more here.
Okay.
He says, everyone present later told me that I did nothing wrong, and I should not be blaming myself for any bad behavior. After the text, I didn't plead or beg. I responded 4 days later with a very brief reply saying I was blindsided and upset that she couldn't talk to me about it. I sent her a letter after that apologizing and asking if we could meet for coffee. So now, okay, it sounds like he said he was upset, then he left it alone for a little bit, then he sent her a letter apologizing and asking to meet. She emailed with a host of very petty reasons why she, quote unquote, hates me.
Okay. This has gotten intense.
Yeah, that came out of nowhere. It all came out of nowhere, right?
Yeah.
Citing other things occurring over the prior few days that were, in my opinion, absolutely clutching at straws and seemingly trying to villainize me. She finished by saying I was a narcissist.
Whoa. Okay, so she was holding back all of this? She was suppressing all of this? I'm surprised that this came out now.
Yeah, and she didn't even tell him at first until he sent the email.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the letter.
Yeah.
I'm surprised she replied to the letter at all, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
And she was furious, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this is really angry.
And it seems like he was clueless. Like didn't think that he did anything wrong, that he didn't understand where she was coming from, or where any of these complaints were coming from.
Yeah, it's interesting, right?
Mm.
I was always looking out for her and put her first. I was always a gentleman and never once spoke badly to her, swore at her, yelled at her, or did anything she didn't like. She addressed some very small behavioral issues early in the relationship, and I quickly addressed them and never did them again, as I think they were a trigger for her and a reminder of her past.
And that's a lot of what I was thinking, that anything can be a trigger when you've experienced trauma. Sounds like her past relationship was traumatic, had elements of trauma to it, and literally anything, a scent, a texture, a certain shade of a color, a type of lighting. So if we're imagining them being in a relationship together, her being at this family event, highly emotional, a big commitment step in their relationship, likely she was a little bit on edge, a little bit hypervigilant, thinking, okay, I'm allowing myself to be vulnerable with somebody again. What does this mean for me?
I better look closely this time to make sure there's no red flags.
Mm-hmm. And I don't want to dismiss all of her complaints or all of her concerns as, oh, she's just traumatized, she doesn't mean any of those things. Maybe there is some merit, but I do agree with him that at least a conversation about those things, instead of getting angry about it, not mentioning it, and then all of a sudden he's met with all of these things that have been bothering her for a while. Mm-hmm. What is he supposed to do with that?
Yeah, exactly, right? There's a little more here. She blocked me immediately from Facebook and Instagram, but not by phone or email. I was kind of surprised she blocked them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not over... It feels more like something that's going on with her than what he did, though.
Yeah.
I'm not overly active on social media anyway, nor is she, so it meant nothing. But I cannot use that as a means of updates, as you so often refer to in your videos. I understand fearful avoidance look for a sign of a perceived threat and will use that as a means to escape, to get out before the possibility of that perceived threat becoming real. I think about her constantly, lament everything I did even remotely wrong, and I have tried to manifest a text to get her back, but to no avail. No, the spells aren't working. Damn these spellcasters!
I mean, I can understand this, and if it does soothe you, I know that there's a lot of these videos. You're already rolling your eyes at me. There's a lot of these videos on YouTube that are like a certain frequency and to like manifest certain things. Whatever soothes you, whatever gets you through. It's a nice hum.
Don't spend money on spellcasters.
Don't do that. Don't do that.
Yeah, please.
But just saying, there are some frequencies out there. And if it soothes you to listen to them, by all means, but take care of your mental health, okay?
All right, there's a little more. I meditate daily now and have worked on myself physically and mentally, and I'm seeing a therapist fortnightly. Can you please offer your advice or take on the situation and what I should do? As we're in our mid-50s, I always think a letter directly with my feelings and thoughts on the matter is a more mature way to approach things. I don't want to lose her. Obviously, I love her very much and honestly think she loves me too. He's got a couple questions here. Based on the above, do you think she will contact me? Does your instinct tell me that she will want to reconcile? And given our age, will me reaching out help? Okay, so he already sent a letter. Mm-hmm. So what does he want to send? A second handwritten letter here?
It sounds like it. I mean, it also sounds like because he was dumped with all of these complaints and all of these issues, he didn't really have a chance to respond. And I get the sense that he probably feels silenced, like she just completely cut him off through text and said, I don't want to hear it.
Yep.
So there's probably a lot that he's going through that he wants to express to her but can't. My recommendation is, if it does help you to write things out, to organize your thoughts and to process, do that. But I don't think that sending it to her or letting her read that will change her mind at this point by any means.
I would not do that. I will not do that. It's possible she could contact you. I suppose part of that would depend upon if there was actually any merit to her complaints. If there wasn't, then she's probably going to sit there and think, well, he didn't really do those things to mistreat me.
Right.
Now, if she did have more validity to those complaints, then obviously she's going to feel more like, oh no, I'm right about this. He's not seeing it. So I think part of it will depend upon whether or not he's seeing those flaws correctly, or if they're just made up from her. You know what I mean?
Right. And also, I do think that the people in her life do have some influence thinking about her children here, too. They're going to hear this story. They're going to have their own thoughts and opinions. And depending on what direction they would like to see their mother's life go in, it can change how she sees the situation.
Yep.
I don't know if that's good or bad. It might be neutral, but just something to consider.
And I don't really think age has a difference on a handwritten letter. In my experience, it doesn't. And so, no, I'm not recommending to you to send her a letter. I think she needs to sit with things and think about things. And if you really did treat her as good as you say you did, then why wouldn't she miss you? Why wouldn't she think, maybe I'm making a mistake and losing out on somebody who really cared about me?
Right.
Right?
She used some very powerful language in calling you a narcissist.
Yeah, it's like the exact opposite. They're like completely different ends of the spectrum here. I'm treating her great. She's calling me a narcissist. How do we get so far apart on this?
Right. And I'm also thinking about that 30-year marriage. I do think that has a profound impact on the way she sees relationships.
Sure.
This was a bulk of her life. It seems like it was the majority of her life that she spent with this other man. So it could be some projection happening of using that term narcissist. Maybe the person that she was with was a narcissist. So she becomes very, very highly attuned to these things and sometimes perceiving it when it's not there.
Yeah, I do think that he has more anxiety than he realizes. And that's why he's trying to control the situation so much. I sent her this text, I sent her this letter, and now I want to send another letter.
Yeah.
I mean, that control is coming from your anxiety and trying to make things go the way that you want them to, instead of allowing it to play out with how she needs and what she wants and how she feels. I mean, and honestly, if you treated her as good as you said, aren't you angry at her for saying you're a narcissist? Like, if I treated somebody really good and then they're saying that I'm a narcissist and has this long list of complaints about me, I'm going to be like, I don't think I want to be with somebody who sees me in such a different light than how I've presented myself or tried to treat you.
Yeah. And I don't think that the timing here is coincidental. 6 months, this is normally when we see people's attachment styles being triggered and those types of behaviors coming out. So it could be that this was the moment where it got intimate enough, it got close enough for a lot of her traumas to come up.
Yep, I think so too.
And maybe the same was for you. Maybe there were things in your own past, your own anxiety coming up around that time too. Maybe it was something that she could sense. I always tend to think that there's some type of dynamic here. So.
I think she was picking up on the intensity of how much he liked her, and that freaked her out, right? Just the way he described how he treated her, it was like, it's almost too much for a new relationship to feel like that. It's like, whoa, like I want to see that in the long term, let's get to know each other. But in the beginning, it's like, this person is just, it feels overwhelming.
Right. And I also wonder in these situations just about expectations, goals, things for the future. Was he eventually expecting her to be his wife at some point? Could she pick up on those types of expectations, that he wanted something stable, something serious for a long time? Maybe that's not in the cards for her. So I wonder if at any point they have had those conversations, or how they would go in the future if they were to have those.
Well, there's a lot going on in this situation. But, you know, really think about her issues, her complaints, and how much or how little they lined up. It doesn't sound like you guys were seeing the same things about this situation. And, you know, if that's the case, if you treated her that good and she sees you like this, then you really got to consider if you want her as a long-term partner anyway. So, like I said earlier, I think her reaching out will depend upon how much she really believes what she told him is true versus what's actually true. And I think if she realizes he was really good to me, then I think she's going to be a lot more likely to reach out.
I agree.
All right. So hopefully you found this one helpful. Of course, if you want to get our help personally, you can do that on my website, askcraig.net. I do email coaching and I do Skype. Victoria is also available for Skype coaching.
I'm here if you'd like to chat.
Just click on her name at the top of the website to schedule with her. But that's it for this video. I'm Coach Craig Kenneth.
And I'm Coach Victoria.
And we will talk with you soon.